first said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
I have been saying it since the beginning of this effing pandemic. I have screamed it from the rooftops. I've been telling everybody that we need to be taking a chapter from the BLM playbook if we want to get anything done. We've tried the peaceful protests. We've tried the rallies. We've tried writing letters to Albany. We've tried everything under the sun except going rogue, which is the only thing that seemed to have helped Black Lives Matter out when they wanted police reform. How can you forget it? They took to the streets. They waged war on every single city throughout the United States of America until finally they got their way. It's the only thing that seems to work. It's the only thing that actually helped them achieve their mission. So months ago, when I first said, listen, people, we are not going to get anything done unless we actually take a chapter out of the BLM playbook and start to wage our own war on the Democratic tyranny. And people looked at me and they thought, are you crazy? We're going to actually take to the streets and rage violence? And I thought, listen, forget the fact that it's an outrageous, crazy idea, but it's the only thing that has worked. The only thing that has worked. Well, guess what? I actually sent out a few emails to heads of the BLM leaders throughout New York State, and I've been trying to reach out to these people, and I said, hey guys, listen, why don't we team up and go up against the tyranny here in New York State? Why don't we go up against the teachers' unions together? Why don't we go up against the vaccine mandates? And I didn't hear anything back. And I thought, okay, fine, fair enough. There may be a little bit of resentment. We didn't exactly back them up during their protests, during their riots. We didn't agree with how they were conducting themselves. But I guess at the end of the day, if your passion is great enough, if the cause is great enough, not to warrant violence, but to make you kind of put aside every once in a while certain ethical practices or certain moral practices, who am I to tell them that they shouldn't be fighting? So I thought, okay, let's reach out to them now and see if we can get them on board here. Well, I guess they weren't angry enough until a few days ago. For those of you who aren't aware, in New York City, 3 black women went to a restaurant and they were denied entry because they did not show proof of vaccination. Well, they then started a scene with the hostess. They attacked the hostess and they caused physical violence against this hostess. Okay, totally inappropriate. You don't have proof of vaccination. You shouldn't. I mean, in New York City, as ridiculous as we think the rules are, you're not allowed in. So these 3 black women were not allowed in, and they assaulted the hostess. They physically assaulted her. Completely inappropriate. Completely inappropriate. So they were obviously kicked out, probably arrested, charges filed. Well, the Black Lives Matter leader in New York City got a hold of this and thought, oh, hell no. And they raised a protest that night at Carmine's, which is a restaurant in New York City. So these 3 black women actually assaulted a hostess because the hostess just simply wanted to see proof of vaccination because she's just doing what her boss told her to do, which Bill de Blasio told him to do. And when they didn't show it, they got violent. They attacked her and caused a scene. And then Black Lives Matter decides to defend the 3 black women who assaulted the hostess, claiming the whole thing was racist. Okay. clearly it's not racist. We know that there's nothing racist about the vaccine mandate. There's absolutely nothing racist about it. I'm white. I'm not vaccinated. I can't get into a New York City restaurant. It's just simple as that. Am I going to scream and yell about it? No, because it's not going to get me anywhere. Well, Black Lives Matter decided to scream and yell about it. And I thought, okay, let's see where this goes. Well, Black Lives Matter is now actually turning on the Democrats and have threatened New York City that there is going to be an uprising. They have actually threatened the city of New York and said, we promise an uprising over racist vaccine mandates. Co-founder of the Black Lives Matter group in New York is warning of an uprising just like the George Floyd riots. So now they're bringing race into the vaccine mandate. They are going to riot over Democrats' oppressive vaccine mandates that strongly impact Black Americans. So the leader, Shavona Newsom, led a protest at Carmine's Italian restaurant in New York City this week, past Monday, after the 3 Black women were denied entry because of their failure to provide proof of vaccination. 72% of Black people in New York City between the ages of 18 to 44 are unvaccinated, Newsom said during the protest. So what is going to stop the Gestapo, which we all know, I mean the NYPD, from rounding up Black people, from snatching them off the train, off the bus? So I don't think that's actually going to happen. I mean, the white people haven't been worried about being snatched off the trains, snatched off the buses, yanked out of restaurants. I mean, again, you're not getting into one if you don't provide proof of vaccination. So totally uncalled for claiming that this whole thing's racist. It's not racist, but they've decided to put New York City on notice. This Shavona, whatever her name is, Shavona Newsom, the leader of Black Lives Matter chapter in New York City, said, we are putting the city on notice that your mandate will not be another racist social distance practice. Black people are not going to stand by, or you will see another uprising. And that is not a threat. That is a promise, she added. The vaccination passport is not a free passport to racism. Listen, I'm totally on board with all of this, okay? I know it's not racist. I'm not on board with the whole race baiting card. But you better freaking believe I am ready to go BLM on this bullshit. I have been ready to go BLM on this crap for months now. But what strikes me odd is that every time I talk about going BLM, every time I talk about, showing some sort of ramped up aggression towards our government because of their tyrannical acts, I'm considered a white conservative extremist. We can't talk about that. We can't say we're going to go to the streets and we're going to get violent. We're not allowed to do that. Apparently, white people are not allowed to protest and riot in the same capacity that Black people are. For some reason, it's acceptable if Black people want to protest or riot, but it's not if we want to. So this is where I have a little bit of an issue. So is it acceptable that they want to have an uprising in New York City and they're basically threatening to start taking out restaurants in a very violent and aggressive manner? No, because that's, as Americans, that's just not how we're supposed to act. But listen, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I don't blame them at this point. I really don't, because this is tyrannical now. And it's getting so out of control. It's uprooting so many people's lives. At what point do we say, you know what? We're not doing this peacefully anymore. We've tried the peaceful way and it's not working. At what point do we say, you know what? If this nonsense doesn't come to an end, we're going to start going Australia. on the local police or the local government. Because there's a lot of civil unrest over in Australia right now. I mean, they are pissed. They are charging police precincts. They are charging police officers at protests. I mean, they have had enough. They are fed up. They are literally fighting violently and aggressively for their freedoms. And I don't blame them. I am done with the whole peaceful protest bit. Personally, I've been done with it for a long time. I stopped going to protests. I stopped going to rallies. I stopped waving flags because none of it does a damn thing. So it's great to see Black Lives Matter finally getting pissed off enough to join our fight. And I've said it from the beginning. I said, you know what? If we can bring Black Lives Matter together with the white community and fight these vaccine mandates together, this could be the best thing ever for the United States of America. But the Democrats, you better believe this is the worst thing for them, because we know since the beginning of this that Democrats have intentionally and purposely divided the black and white community. They've done it to separate us and conquer the weak. And they've succeeded so far. So Black Lives Matter actually turning on the Democrats is the best thing possible for this country. And I wish them all the best in this situation. I really do. I hope they're successful in their endeavors. I hope they bring New York City to its knees in this case. Because, see, the last time I was against it, for those of you who are thinking I may be sounding hypocritical right now because I screamed and yelled at them the entire time that they were fighting for justice, the reason I didn't appreciate that is because they were fighting for black criminals who were in the wrong. I'm not saying that all the officers that attacked these black criminals were 100% right either. But it does take two to tango. And in all of these situations that we saw leading up to these riots, we know that there was some sort of crime committed. There was some sort of attempted murder at stake here. There was whether they fled the scene, they were told to stop, they resisted arrest, they pulled a gun. At the end of the day, every one of these officers did have a right to not necessarily act the way they did, but to at least begin the restraining process. Yes, a few of these ended up in a very bad way. Chauvin, for example, absolutely no right whatsoever to have knelt on George Floyd's neck. That went too far, and it was just completely unnecessary. It did not have to go that far. At the same time, George Floyd is no freaking martyr. The guy is no saint. He did not deserve to die, but he was not in the right here. So we're trying to make martyrs out of criminals, and that is what I disagreed with. The fact that a lot of the riots, a lot of these very aggressive and violent protests were defending black criminals who were 100% in the wrong. And I don't think that should have been the cause for the riots. What should have been the cause for the riots, and I'll still defend this, and I will back Black Lives Matter up in this instance, is police reform. Police reform against people like Derek Chauvin, so that something like that never happens again. And look what happened. They've been fighting for decades peacefully until the last few years. They didn't get their way. It wasn't going anywhere. Finally, they said, you know what? This is ridiculous. Nobody's listening to us. We're going to the streets. We're going to start burning stuff down. We're going to cause a huge scene until we get our way. Whether any of us agree with whether that was right or wrong, that's neither here or there. The point is, it worked. So here we are now, nearly 2 years into this pandemic. We've tried everything. We've tried peaceful protests. We've tried letters to Albany. We've tried rallies. We've tried school board meetings. nothing has worked. Mandates are still in effect. Vaccine requirements are in full force. Kids are still out of school. And the teachers' unions are still calling the shots. Nothing is working. So when I said it's time to go BLM on this COVID nonsense, I meant it. I meant that, listen, the government is acting so tyrannical now. Let's not forget, our right to bear arms is a constitutional right of ours, not so we can go hunting. It's so we can overtake a tyrant government. So no, I am not a white extremist for suggesting that maybe it is time that we fight harder, that we take a chapter from the BLM playbook and we go up against the tyrannical government more aggressively in order to put a stop to this bullshit once and for all. So yesterday, to see that Black Lives Matter was jumping on the bandwagon was music to my ears. Black Women's March co-founder Kimberly Bernard also said, "We are serving notice on the mayor, on the governor, on the restaurant industry that we will not allow you to use this pandemic, vaccination cards, and masks as another reason to be racist to put us in prison because there's enough of us in there." According to the attorney for one of the black women who was involved in the incident, the hostess used a racial slur. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about this. I don't know if that actually happened, but I guess that's now their defense, that the hostess actually used a racial slur. Again, a racial slur does not warrant you physically assaulting somebody. But nevertheless, it provoked these three black women. The point is that Black Lives Matter is now threatening New York City, Bill de Blasio, Kathy Hochul, and the entire restaurant industry. That if they don't put an end to this vaccine passport, that they are promising an uprising over these racist vaccine mandates. So listen, I don't care what you want to call it, but guys, I'm all in. I am all in on this. Is it racist? Of course it's not racist. It's the furthest thing from racist, because look at my skin color. Clearly I'm white. I can't get into the same restaurants either. But you better believe I will be right there fighting by their side. If you want to fight these vaccine mandates and you want to team up with BLM, now we're in business. Now we're finally going to get somewhere. Because Black Lives Matter, when they want to get something done right, whether you agree with it or not, they get it done. And I have been saying for months now, we really need to be teaming up with BLM. We need to come together. If this is going to be what brings the black and white community, then I am all for burning New York City to the ground over this very tyrannical and far left, progressive and radical government that continues to hold New Yorkers back and gut punch them hit after hit after hit. And our kids are suffering, and our businesses are suffering, and the entire state is suffering, all because of a very few tyrannical assholes. So BLM, I'm all in. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
You Made It Political would not have been possible without this book right here, Expert Secrets, by my man, Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson wrote this book to help people like you and I become leaders in our space, to gain an audience and a public following that respects, loves, and watches our shows on a daily basis. Expert Secrets will help you find your voice and give you the confidence to become a leader. It'll show you how to build a mass movement of people whose lives you can affect. And most importantly, it'll teach you how to become an expert authority in your field where people actually pay you for your advice. The best part about Expert Secrets is it's absolutely free. You just pay for shipping. Whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, or a live YouTube streamer, you want to grab a copy of this book. It'll teach you everything from building your audience to driving traffic to making this a full-time job so you can get paid for your passion.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
What's going on, Patriots? Thank you guys for tuning in, by the way. We go live every single morning at 10 a.m. First of all, it's good to see all the comments coming in. Lorianne, you've got to be one of my best fans right now. I mean, I love you. You're on every single show. You comment on every video, and I just wanted to throw you a quick shout out and say it hasn't gone unnoticed. Thank you so much for everything. Tuning in from sunny Florida. Man, we're jealous of you down in Florida. I hope you're enjoying your much-deserved freedom. Leslie from the UK, thank you for coming in all the way from the UK. Not vaccinated, never will be, but racist vaccine? I agree. I'm with you on that one. We are all being attacked for refusing this. BLM is a controlled group. I hear where you're coming from. Jennifer says the Dems used BLM and Antifa. Yes, they did. And I'm so glad that the Democrats are finally fighting, or that the BLM is finally turning on them. They are, in fact, eating their own. This is going to make my liberal friends' heads freaking explode. I can't wait until they see the story. So, Lori, back to one of your comments. You said, Matt, I get where you're coming from with the BLM thing, but with them, you are either all in with them or you're not. I mean, listen, we gotta at some point decide, you know, as my mom said, you gotta pick and choose your battles. All right. We need help right now. We really need help with Black Lives Matter. We need help with the vaccine mandate. If Black Lives Matter can help us get it done, I'm kind of willing to give them a shot, but I do hear where you're coming from. Leslie said BLM are supported via the same tyrannical government trying to impose these mandates. You're wrong about them. Maybe I am wrong. Listen, I'm not naive, Leslie. I totally get where this group is coming from. But if I can just borrow them for 2 seconds to kind of put an end to these mandates and then let them go off and do their thing, I mean, should we not give it a try? I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming in and tuning in from all over the country. All right, Chris Cuomo. I mean, listen, guys, we all knew this was going to happen. We knew that when Governor Andrew Cuomo, was taken out because of sexual harassment. I even posted the day that Governor Cuomo, or Andrew Cuomo, resigned. I said, FREDO's next. I said it. I was like, FREDO's next. One Cuomo down, one more to go. Well, lo and behold, must run in the family, because Chris Cuomo, CNN's Chris Cuomo, is now accused of sexually harassing female producer at ABC News. This is freaking great. I love this. I knew that this guy ultimately was going to actually be taken down by somebody out there. They run in the same family, and that's not to say that just because your brother or sister do something that you automatically are guilty by association. But at the same time, I mean, the arrogance of Chris Cuomo, just the way he portrays himself, I knew it was just a matter of time before he too got busted. So Chris Cuomo is now under fire. He is being a veteran television journalist, accused Chris Cuomo on Friday, so this just broke out this morning, of once sexually harassing her when they worked together at ABC News, and she feels the Cuomo primetime namesake needs to journalistically repent for his behavior. So apparently Chris Cuomo sexually harassed this ABC News editor or journalist. So what exactly happened here? So apparently this executive producer of an ABC entertainment special, she wrote, I was at a party with my husband. So here she is with her husband at a party, and Chris Cuomo still has the audacity to do this. So she was at a party with her husband, who sat behind me on the ottoman sipping his Diet Coke as I spoke with work friends. When Mr. Cuomo entered the Upper West Side bar, he walked toward me and greeted me with a strong bear hug while lowering one hand to firmly grab and squeeze the cheek of my buttocks. So Cuomo has basically grabbed her ass with her husband in the room. I mean, not only is that ballsy to begin with, to just do that to a female that may or may not like it, but then to do it with her husband in the room, I mean, you're asking for trouble here. So Ross said Cuomo told her, I can do this now. This is what Cuomo said basically to this female. Cuomo said, I can do this now that you're no longer my boss, and did it. So I don't know, boss or no boss, it really doesn't warrant you being able to grab somebody like that. So Cuomo is in a world of trouble, and we just knew it was a matter of time. Let's see what the American people have to say about the fact that Chris Cuomo is now being busted for sexual harassment. Al says, and they criticize Trump just like the other do, as I say not as I do journalists. Absolutely. I mean, how many times have Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo gone after Trump for the same thing? And clearly they're no angels. Lisa says, you don't say. That is interesting. Obviously. I mean, we all knew it was coming. We knew that Chris Cuomo was at some point. And this is just the first one, people. You know there's going to be a whole army of girls or of women to come forward on Chris Cuomo. Once one comes out, that's it. It's game over. You know there's going to be a whole boatload. I mean, with Andrew Cuomo, one came out and 10 more followed. But you know what's going to be funny about this is we're not going to hear from Me Too. Where was the Me Too movement for the entire Andrew Cuomo scandal? There wasn't any. And also, can somebody please tell me where the charges are for Andrew Cuomo? I mean, he just kind of disappeared. Is he not going to be charged, prosecuted? I mean, when's his court date? Is he going to face prison like anybody else? So it's just interesting that Cuomo resigns and nobody has heard a thing about the case since. Are we going to actually go after him? I mean, Letitia James said, I have no choice but to find this guy guilty of what he's been accused of. Okay, well, now what? Now we're just going to let this whole thing go. So he resigned, he left the spotlight, and that was that. Well, now Chris Cuomo's under fire. And I'm hoping what's going to happen here is that Chris Cuomo is now going to maybe rehash some of the stuff that was buried with Andrew Cuomo. And people are going to say, hey, wait a second. By the way, what happened to Andrew? When's his court case? When is he going to get convicted and thrown in prison for sexual harassing 11 people, just like I would if I was in his position? When's all that going to happen? So just because these guys are politicians, clearly they don't get a jail out of free card. I mean, they kind of do, but they shouldn't. So here we are with Chris Cuomo now in the same predicament. Hypocritical liars and scumbags, absolutely, David. And the house of cards begins to crumble. That's exactly what's going on here. So for those of you who are just joining us, we're talking about the fact that Chris Cuomo is now under fire for his sexual harassment allegations from an ABC executive producer who said, quote, he walked towards me and greeted me with a strong bear hug while lowering one hand to firmly grab and squeeze the cheek of my buttocks. So that's the deal. All right, Chris Cuomo's not the only one under fire. Who else is under fire? Well, listen, as if Biden doesn't have enough on his plate, Biden actually is now being accused of hiding roughly $500,000 in back taxes. Biden may actually owe $500,000 in back taxes. So here Joe is, the worst president in the history of the United States. I mean, let's be honest. Who's worse than Joe? Nobody, ever. And here he is trying to spend more of our hard-earned tax dollars, raise our taxes to come up with more spending, this $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, which we all know has nothing to do with infrastructure. that even the Democrats are having a problem with. Joe Manchin, Democrat, giving a lot of kickback here, saying this isn't right. We got to stop the spending. Biden saying, don't worry. We're going to raise capital gains taxes on the small business or on the business owners, which, by the way, make up 50% of employers in America. So for anyone of you who applaud capital gains tax hike, who applaud taxing the rich or employers, let me remind you, 50% of the entire United States workforce is made up of small businesses. If we take these people out, if they stop running their businesses, that means we're not employing people. It means we're not paying taxes. It's going to cause a massive, massive economic collapse. So every time you hear somebody say, tax the rich, tax the business owners, raise the gains, they don't pay enough. Let me remind all of you, or at least you can remind anyone you get into this argument with, that without these people, there is no America. They make up 50%. When you raise my taxes as an entrepreneur, what does that do to me? It prevents me from hiring more employees. Therefore, you're out of a job. It prevents me investing and growing in my business. Therefore, the government gets even less taxes in the future. So it's a very short-sighted thing trying to raise the taxes on the rich or the self-employed. Because when you stunt our growth, when you stunt our inability to spend money, you're now restricting the economy's growth. And let's be honest, these very, very wealth millionaires and billionaires, they splashed their cash. Think about what they're spending that money on. Stimulating the economy. And if you guys remember, when we started getting these stimulus checks a year ago and a few months ago, whenever it was, what were they called? They were called stimulus checks. They weren't called savings checks. They weren't called go pay off your credit card check. They weren't called save this money for a rainy day check. They were called stimulus checks because the government wanted you to take that money. They didn't want you to put it in the bank. They didn't want you to pay off your credit cards, which I did because that was the smart thing to do. They wanted you to go out and buy a 50-inch flat screen TV. They wanted you to go out and lease another car. They wanted you to go out and splash your cash. Why? Because it keeps the economy going. So when I hear the village idiot try to raise taxes on the rich and on the self-employed, it totally contradicts the stimulus checks that they just handed out to everybody. So they want you to spend money, but they don't want the wealthy to spend money, or they want the wealthy to spend money on them, the government. Well, here's another little news flash for everybody. The rich know how to get out of paying taxes. You can raise the capital gains tax to 100%. I'm just going to expense the hell out of everything I can. I'm just going to move my business into tax shelters. It's all going to be done legally. With the right accountant, we all can get out of paying tax. I can lower my effective rate from 40% down to 8% if I found the right tax attorney. And to be honest, it's not rocket science. You can go on freaking TurboTax or use any of these softwares today and go from 40% to an effective rate of 11%. So all you're doing when you're taxing the rich, I'm not including myself in this category. I wish I were the rich, but I am self-employed. You're making me shift money around. You're making me find legal loopholes. Well, Joe Biden apparently also found a legal loophole, which is why he owes or may owe up to $500,000 in back taxes. So what did Sneaky Joe do now? How did he get himself into this trouble? Well, Joe Biden may have improperly avoided paying Medicare taxes before he took office and could owe the IRS up to $500,000 now, according to a Congressional Research Service report. So I'm just going to give you guys a quote here. This is from Representative Jim Banks. Joe Biden wants to raise taxes by $2.1 trillion while claiming the rich need to pay their fair share. But in 2017, multimillionaire Joe Biden skirted his payroll taxes, the very taxes that fund Medicare and Obamacare. So he skimped out on paying Obamacare when he was, even though he was vice president under Obama, when he came up with Obamacare. Classy. So here's where Joe Biden found a legal loophole. Whether it was legal or not, I don't know. Maybe it was illegal, because if he owes the back taxes, it was illegal. So Banks said that the report indicated that Biden improperly used S corporations, which is basically when you start a corporation, they ask you, do you want to start an S corporation or a C corporation? And that really just depends on what kind of business you are. If you're a certain kind of business and you pick S to try to avoid tax, it's just going to come and bite you in the ass or haunt you in the future, which is what's happening with Biden right now. He basically improperly used S corporations while he and First Lady Jill Biden raked in over $13 million on speaking fees and book sales in 2017 and 2018, but counted less than $800,000 of it as salary that could be taxed for Medicare. So sneaky Joe Biden is out there now trying to raise the taxes on the rich. He's trying to raise the taxes on businesses through capital gains tax, and he himself is now evading tax. $500,000 is a lot of money. The point is that you can't trust these politicians. You can't trust these people to manage our money properly. You can't trust them to be honest. And you know, it's always going to come out eventually. It's happening to a few other politicians as well. Quite a few of them now owe money. They're being uncovered and found, and it's always the hypocritical ones that are trying to raise the taxes on the rest of us. So, you know, we know Biden's leading the charge to pass this $3.5 trillion bill that would help fund childcare, education, and healthcare. In order to help pay for the cost of the massive legislation, Biden's plan calls for targeting tax avoidance while raising taxes on people of high income brackets who Biden claims doesn't pay their fair share. So who's not paying their fair share? Well, sneaky Joe Biden's not. And he owes $500,000. So Mike says, it just keeps getting better and better with this clown. You just can't make this crap up. I mean, this guy is in so much trouble right now. There's nothing he can do right. I hope this just buries him. And it is burying him. And we'll look at his poll ratings in just a second. David says, Delaware, you started this 45 plus years ago and you kept re-electing him. Now everyone has to listen to this demented old man's bull crap. This is why term limits are needed, so we don't suffer from a stupid line-assed politician. It's exactly what Joe is right now. I hope you are all proud of your little Joey. Well, this sounds a whole lot like a racist, impossible KKK member. He's definitely not a Catholic, and he and his party call Trump and anyone who disagrees with their socialistic, Marxist, communistic ideology, they are pulling out of their playbook to use on America. If America fails, thanks for enabling it to happen. You know, that is such a good comment. And listen, you know, Joe Biden is a snake. He reminds me of a used car salesman. He reminds me of a snake-oiled salesman. I've never trusted this guy. And I don't know why so many of my Democrat friends look at him and think he's the second coming. I never understood how black people, after all the racist remarks that Joe Biden had to say throughout his entire 47-year political career, racist mark after racist mark after racist mark, and they still voted for this idiot. They still like this guy. I don't get it. How many times does Joe Biden have to screw up before you stop and think, you know what? Maybe this is not the person I thought he was. Well, 21 points lost in 2 months leads me to believe that people are starting to wake up. That people are, in fact, starting to wake up, and they're furious now with who they voted for. So Biden's poll ratings are sinking. He has a 21-point loss in 2 months. 93% have inflation concerns. Most signal multiple issues. So no, people aren't happy. They're since his whole, the Afghanistan evacuation debacle was pretty much the last straw for everybody. We know Joe's poll ratings have been getting destroyed. But this is bad. This is monumental. I don't know the last time any president actually saw poll ratings sink as badly as 21 points in just 2 months, with 93% of these people saying they have serious inflation concerns. By the way, they're about to get a lot worse. Last year, when everybody was stocking up on toilet paper, I thought, okay, you guys are overreacting, chill. Well, Costco has now just announced that they're running out of supplies, that you're not going to really be able to get home goods, that they're now limiting these goods. This is no longer fear tactics. This is real now. So if you think inflation is up now, wait until you can't find bread and milk. It's coming, people. All because we have let the Democrats control our everyday life. We have allowed them to basically dictate how we live, and they've done a horrible job. A disastrous job. This is what happens when you allow government to run your life. Government doesn't know how to manage you. Government is awful at trying to run a business. Look at what they've done to the national debt. $28 trillion we are in debt, and they still want to raise the debt ceiling. We talked a lot about that on my show yesterday. $28 trillion. And now the government only has about 2 to 3 months worth of cash flow to support federal employees to keep, from preventing a shutdown. So you're not safe. If you're a government employee, you're not safe there either. When you let government tell you how to live your life, this is what happens, people. All you have to do is look at freaking Venezuela, Cuba, China. How many successful people do you know in any of these countries that weren't or made their way through corruption? That is the only way you make it in a socialist country. If you're a part of a corrupt political system where the money comes in, it basically goes to the top and it doesn't work its way down. In a free economy, you make money and it kind of works its way throughout the system because we all work together to do business. The government is horrible at running a business, and they've proven it time and time again. Yet half of these dumbasses in America, they praise this guy. They welcome Daddy Joe to tell them how to live their life. And it's just mind-boggling to me, because never has a country succeeded where government tries to run the entire country. America has done a really good job through the 80s, the 90s, even 2000s. Yes, we have our up and downs. Markets will correct no matter who's running office. We saw it with President Trump. We saw a downturn and then we saw an uptick. We're seeing the same thing now. The markets are bound to crash and they're bound to rally. But that's just what's going to happen in a free market. I've lived in China for 10 years. I saw what happened when they actually put a stop on the stock market from going down any further because it already suffered a 20% loss in a single day. You cannot manipulate the stock market without it eventually catching up to you. Well, this is now what the Biden administration is trying to do. Not necessarily manipulate the stock market, but they're trying to control our everyday life, and it's not working. And we have seen inflation go through the roof. We've seen unemployment go to all-time highs. And this is just the beginning, people. And yet the Democrats still continue to welcome them with open arms. So let's break down the poll. According to dailywire.com, Democrat President Joe Biden's presidency is sinking fast as America's two major political parties begin to focus their sights on the upcoming midterm elections, which are now just a little over a year away. The news cannot come at a worse time for Biden, as the nearly 79-year-old president, the oldest president in the United States, is dealing with multiple crises that have erupted under his watch, including the disaster in Afghanistan, the ongoing national security and humanitarian catastrophe on the southern border, and repeated turmoil with U.S. allies. His refusal to answer questions from reporters and skyrocketing inflation, just to name a few. So, what's this mean to his ratings here? How bad is Joe really off after everything he has done to destroy America in just 9 months? By the way, let's not forget, we're only 9 months into this guy's presidency, and look at everything that he's done. The president's party, on average, loses at 14 seats in the House of Representatives if their approval rating is above 50%. However, so what's going to happen in the coming elections? These are great stats to pay attention to. However, if their approval rating is below 50%, the Democrats, on average, lose 37 House seats. The Democrats under former President Barack Obama lost a staggering 63 seats in 2010. So for those of you who are sitting here thinking, well, who cares? It's just a poll. Poll means nothing. They do. And if you think Joe Biden's just going to get away with this because maybe more election fraud, I'd think twice. Okay, because let's assume election fraud is well and truly here, which I do. I do think there's a lot of fraud that's been committed. I know we have Arizona audits coming out today, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. I know they're laying it on thick right now. But if there is fraud today, I have to assume there's been fraud for the last few decades. Okay? I mean, fraud's not new. Fraud's been happening for a long time. Maybe not at this scale, but it's been happening. So I like seeing stats that tell me that when the president's party has a rating or an approval rating above 50%, they still lose 14 seats. But when a party has below 50%, they lose on average 37 seats. So even when Joe Biden's party or when the president has an approval rating of 50% or higher, they still manage to lose 14 seats according to historical statistics. And when they have an approval rating below 50%, they lose on average 37 seats. So it's good to know that, listen, I think the Democrats only have a 5-seat margin on the Republicans right now. And that's nothing. I mean, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have never been more scared in their life than they are right now to lose control of the House. They're going to lose it. I'm calling it right now. Republicans take the House in 2022. Calling it right now. So Biden's getting destroyed. Since the poll conducted immediately before Biden's September 9th mandate announcement, the president's net approval rating has fallen 12 percentage points among black voters. So he's gone down 12 percentage points among black voters. 17-point drop among unvaccinated black voters. Fewer than half of the United States adults, 44%, now approve of the way Biden is handling his job. 53% disapprove. This marks a reversal in Biden's job rating since July, when a 55% majority is approved of his job performance and 43% disapproved. So we've having a massive turn. 53% now disapprove. According to a Fox News poll, by a 54 to 37% margin, they think the country is less united under Biden rather than more so. And according to Gallup, 8 months after President Joe Biden's inauguration, his job approval rating has fallen 6 percentage points to 43%, the lowest of his presidency. For the first time, a majority, 53%, now disapprove. 53% now disapprove of Biden's performance. The Cook Political Report reports private polling is picking up double-digit drops in Biden performance in competitive House seats. This is the end of the Democrats keeping the House right now, all because statistics and historical show that when a president has a disapproval rating of higher than 50%, they tend to lose 36 congressional seats. So I think we're going to see it come 2022. So hold the line, Patriots. Hold the line. I'm not worried anymore. I was very worried about this country a few months ago. I'm telling you right now, the Democrats and Joe Biden have done such a horrible job managing America that, look, Black Lives Matter already turned on them. They're going up against them. They're threatening the Democrats now. This time, they're not going to do it under Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris's watch. They're going to do it their own way. If you're just joining us, after the show, we'll repost the replay. But Black Lives Matter is now threatening New York City and promising an uprising because of the racist vaccine mandate. So it's great to see Black Lives Matter is now turning on the Democrats. It's great to see that we now are expected, according to historical statistics, to take back the House in 2022. And I believe it. I absolutely believe it. Linda says, yeah, and the other 40% never bother to watch him speak or realize that everything he says is written for him by some fool. It's true. I don't know how Biden doesn't have a 99% disapproval rate. I mean, it's like, I agree. Who are they polling here? Because you're either lying to yourself or you just have absolutely no freaking idea what's going on in the world. Like, you don't turn on the news, you don't watch or listen to Joe Biden speak. I mean, that's the only way you couldn't possibly know what's going on here and how horrendous Biden is. Or you're just turning a blind eye. Or maybe you feel embarrassed. Maybe you feel like, you know what, I know I voted for this reject, but I'm embarrassed and I'm just not. Nobody likes to admit defeat. Nobody likes to admit they were wrong. Trust me. Your liberal friends, if any of you have any, they know they're wrong. They just don't want to admit it. Josephine backs my comment up, saying only 56%. Oh, that's because the other 44% are Democrats or rhinos or dead. They might be dead. They might be polling dead people. Anyone looking at him or listening to his gibberish should know he is a mental case and should not be president. But the alternative is worse, and the one after the alternative is worse than both. Yes, I agree. Kamala Harris is not what we want for this country. But listen, guys, if Kamala Harris did actually take over, which hopefully will be soon rather than later. Listen, we do not want Kamala Harris taking over after Biden's been in office for 2 years, because that means Kamala still gets 2 more terms. If she becomes the president after Joe's been president for 2 years, she gets to finish out those 2 years, plus she gets 2 more 4-year terms. It's in the Constitution. It's fact. If she becomes president tomorrow, she finishes out this term and gets 1 more term. That's it. Now, either scenario, I'm not worried about, because I don't think for 2 seconds the country is going to vote for Kamala Harris. If Joe Biden goes out, she takes over, she's not getting reelected. Let's be honest, people. Remember, no one, even the Democrats, don't care about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Remember, they just didn't want Trump to be reelected. I don't know what's going to happen if Trump runs again. I don't know if they're going to have that same attitude towards Trump. I mean, America could blow itself up within, and I still think the Democrats would not want to vote Trump. That's just the hatred they have towards this guy. I mean, I don't know why they have this intense hatred towards a man who really did nothing wrong except post a few mean tweets here and there. So I don't know what their obsession of hatred is towards Donald Trump, but any other Republican, and you might see them all go flock to, because again, it wasn't Biden that they voted for, it was Trump that they voted against. I'm starting to wonder if Trump hasn't announced his presidency because he's still trying to think, is he going to maybe not run to give another Republican a chance? Again, because any other Republican who isn't Donald Trump may have a better chance with the Democrats. I don't know. I know Republicans, or at least the conservatives and the Republicans, less the rhinos, would rather see Trump. But are the moderate Democrats going to vote for Trump, or are they going to try to get a different candidate in? I don't think Biden will run again anyway. And I don't think Harris running for president is doing the Democrats any favors either. I think they're going to probably try to find somebody else within the party who has a real chance going up against either Donald Trump in 2024 or maybe DeSantis or whoever else decides to run if Trump doesn't run. So I think they have a lot to work out right now. But the scary thing is Kamala Harris becoming president, even if it's for 2 very short years, it's the last thing that America wants right now. The moral of the story, however, is that I think the one thing we can all agree on is that Joe Biden has been an utter freaking disaster for America. Even BLM hates the guy right now. I mean, they're turning on the Democrats, and it's music to my ears. I love seeing this party eat its own. I love seeing BLM, who, wait a second, I thought the Democrats, were on your team, guys. I thought you loved the Dems for everything that they did. Oh, what? They didn't do shit? Right. They used you for your vote once again, tossed you to the freaking curb, and we warned you every single 4 years. We warn you they do this to you. Well, finally, Black Lives Matter has woken up and said, you know what, Democrats? Screw you. We're coming after you. There's going to be an uprising. The vaccine mandates are racist. I don't give a shit if they're racist or whatever they think. I'm going with it. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show. Or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.